This morning, we are delighted to have Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett with us, and her topic is Whole in One. Welcome back, Linda. So nice of you to join us again.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me.
Well, Linda recently retired from her Unity ministry, but that doesn't mean that she's been inactive. You've just got a new book coming out, I understand.
The book
This
came
is
out in
going to be
September.
number 4 or number 5. How
Number
many books
4.
do you have now? 4?
4.
Yeah. And what's the new title going to be?
The new title, it actually was published by Unity and came out in September, this past September. Discover Your Divinity, a modern approach to affirmative prayer. This is a book that is compared to my first book, How to Pray Without Talking to God, which was conceptual and spoke about the evolution of our understanding. This book is a textbook for instructing how to pray the Unity way, and then especially how to pray with others. So we designed it especially for prayer teams in communities to be able to study and gain skill and consciousness.
Well, I look forward to seeing it, and I look forward to hearing you today. Let's go.
Hi, everybody. It's so wonderful to see familiar faces, and some of you maybe I haven't met before. It's been a little while since we were together for a Sunday experience, so it's a thrill to be here. Doug mentioned the title today, Whole in One, my little play on words. You know, I preach what I need to understand. You know that, those of you who teach and speak, right? We speak from, like, for me, I'm a researcher and I'm a student always first. And so, this complex matter of understanding oneness at a time when I'm in physical form is always a challenge. And I find that it's a challenge for all of us as I've been teaching through the New Thought movement over the last couple decades. I really see this is where so much we get stuck or we get perplexed. We have a difficult time. So I just want to unpack a little of my own thoughts about this and understanding, because, I love the title of your community, right? Center for Universal Oneness. I mean, you already, this is already important to you. So I want to start with a quotation from This Life is Yours. This was my third book, co-authored with my daughter, Alicia, and it's a book on wholeness and healing, how healing is claiming our wholeness. So wholeness is the original and absolute you. The way we teach it, wholeness reaches beyond you, encompassing you, fueling you, but it's that which you are. The wholeness that you are exists within the whole, the all of it, the everything, the everywhereness, right? The three omnis: omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, right? The allness of everything. Wholeness is the web of connectivity. It's the field of infinite intelligence, the ocean of existence, the one. And of course, my discipline, Unity, the teachings about God, God in Unity, always have leaned toward a realization of oneness, right? The co-founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle, they came upon that word unity as the name for the body of spiritual teachings that they were building. Well, they had drawn widely from religious and philosophical disciplines around the world, right? The conventional ones as well as obscure ones, noticing especially that the truth is the truth, no matter the language or the body of teachings, right? Thus, the word unity stood for oneness. And we don't want to mistake that for sameness, do we? Oneness is not the same as sameness. Well, one feature of the Fillmore's teaching was that instead of an anthropomorphic deity, God could best be described in broad and vast terminology, such as infinite love, presence, and power, right? And the three omnis: omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, right? The universe, all that is. Well, I think the Fillmores intuited something that mystics and metaphysical masters have always intuited. God and I are one, meaning there's no separation. modern science is confirming this. This is the entirety of the teachings. I think of it as the prime principle. Oneness is the prime principle. Now, none of this is new to any of you. This is the theme of your community, and it's what you stand for. But I like to unpack this a little bit because the sort of the knowledge is very different from the experience, would you say? Knowledge of oneness can be very different from the experience. Well, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson named the 4 primary elements, you know them, that are required for life in the universe: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. It turns out they're the same 4 primary elements that are required for human life, aren't they? These identical elements that are found in the universe are found in us. And this is why Tyson says this means that we are part of this universe. And perhaps more importantly, he says, the universe is in us. So, I say to this as I read and study and listen and embrace and take in these ideas, sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds great. And there's a part of us that has intuited unity, right? That has that oneness understanding. We've had glimpses of it. This is why we're here. We want more of that experience. Yeah. When the perception of separateness fades and you feel, maybe fleetingly, or maybe just really in an embodied way, that you're a part of all that is. But that glimpse, that momentary elevated awareness just makes me hungry for more. How about you? I mean, it makes me want more of that. And so one of the defining features of our humanity is our inexhaustible quest for knowing that we have value and purpose, that we belong in life, that we are one. So whether we think in terms of the past, the present, or the future, and whether we think in terms of physical life or physical death, we search for what is unity, really? What does it mean, like here and now, to me, while I'm embodied? And what does unity mean after physical death? If unity means no separation, no other, then why do we struggle to belong and to find words lacking to try to describe our experience? I've pondered this a lot. And I was just telling Doug and Kyle, and I think there might have been a few of you on, when I was talking about my dad recently made his transition. He was middle of February. And boy, does this really strike me even this morning. This idea of what does it mean to be whole in life? What does it mean to be whole in the experience of death? The simplest way for me to conceptualize this is to say, I am 100% human and I am 100% divine. Therein, just saying that, it's easy to perceive duality in that. And duality confounds oneness, right? Because I'm physical, I'm spiritual. And how do I experience myself knowing that I am physical? How do I experience myself knowing that I am spiritual? I mean, this might sound elementary, but to me, helps me to get closer to understanding by unpacking this. So what is the physical, the human? Well, it's form and shape and senses, emotion. It's logic. It's relative truth. It's the limitations of the brain. Because I've had fun just reading some of the brain scientists. I don't do deep study in this, but David Eagleman is my go-to, brain scientist, who says We can't really rely on our brain for truth necessarily, right? The brain sees what it expects to see. It leaps to conclusions. It misses what is right in front of it, and it doesn't deal in subtlety, right? All of these things are part of physicality, finite manifestation. You know, we have a birth date, we have a death date, time and space. That's physical. Can you feel the density of that? I mean, it feels solid and sure, and it's so easy for me to perceive that fully physical me and see nothing else beyond that, right? But the spiritual divine aspect of being is completely different. It's spaciousness, it's formlessness, it's atmosphere, absolute truth. It's intuition and the realm of inspiration and divine ideas, spiritual understanding. Wow, it's infinity, all that is, no limits. How many of you are familiar with the former brain surgeon? I think she was a brain surgeon, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who described in one of the first TED Talks I ever saw her stroke of insight, I think is what she called it, where she describes herself in the middle of experiencing a stroke and having the scientific knowledge that she did. She was able to distinguish, like when her left side of her brain went off duty, that she was in infinity. She experienced herself totally as a spiritual being, as a disembodied being. And then when she would tune back in, now she could see herself in physical form, be able to identify the keys on a telephone to be able to dial for an emergency call. None of that was available to her when her left side of her brain, her logic, human awareness of self was gone, right? So that realm of spiritual divine is, it has no borders. It's amorphous. There's no words for it. We get that, right? There's just no words in that state of being. And so here, why emphasize this total physical awareness of self, this total spiritual sense of self? Well, because we have a pivotal consciousness, don't we? This is, again, Fillmore taught, I love that word, the pivotal power of our thoughts, the pivotal consciousness, what Fillmore identified as the soul. This is that aspect of being that's able to see myself as a physical being, right? And able to see myself spiritually as well. I'm a point in consciousness in infinity, able to know myself as a distinctive point of consciousness, that me that is physical, or to be able to know myself as infinity in that state of unified mind, right? So just for a moment, just think about some moments when you were aware of yourself as a distinct point of consciousness. Like just something you did this morning, for example, something that you did that was fully physical, taking a walk, going for a walk, making and sipping yourself some coffee or tea, right? The physical you doing physical things. Now, at the same time that you do physical, you could still have a thought, a spiritual thought. You could still, be chanting a mantra. You could turn your mind to that. But to have a full experience of yourself as infinity, you better be sitting down, right? Or you better be in a place where you're safe, because if your awareness of your physical goes away while you're in a physical field, you suddenly can't accomplish very much physically. Does that make sense? I mean, in that consciousness, you're totally expanded beyond even a recognition of physicality. And maybe this is why we sit or lie down or, go out in a field somewhere, where we don't have danger points physically, when we're in that state of oneness, state of mind. So, in physical death, the consciousness pivots entirely, right? We leave the physical and now we're totally in the non-physical. It's not death in the sense that the infinite cannot die, right? That infinity, that sense of self as spiritual isn't extinguishable the way the sense of self physically is extinguishable. But all of it, the humanity and the divinity, it's wholeness, it's oneness. I can't speak of the one without no knowledge of the other. If I'm truly to know that I am whole, I am fully human, fully divine, whole, a whole being. And whether I'm in physical form or whether I'm in a momentary formless state in meditation, for example, we're fully alive. We're fully alive. We're fully able to embrace all of it. And for the most part, what we do, and this is just because it's practical when we're walking around in a human suit, right? It's practical, is that we pivot from one awareness to another. Look at the infinity sign I'm drawing here. This is the truth about wholeness. I am fully human and I'm operating in humanity. I was recently in Ajijic, Mexico, which is a little town outside of Guadalajara. It's mountainous, and the town, it's a local community around which the spiritual community of Namaste Village was born. But the one caution that I was given before I went there was, make sure you have good sturdy walking shoes, because the streets are treacherous, right? The streets are treacherous. When you're walking in the streets, they're uneven. The street, there's no curbs somewhere, and there's curbs, but it's just there's cobblestone streets, so it's very wonky. And the caution is, you can walk, gawk, or talk, but only do one of those at a time. That was my instruction when I went there. Well, imagine me trying to navigate those walkways, that little town, if I'm not fully embodied. Let's think about that. I mean, this is where accidents happen. When, I remember one time when I was very young, and I never did it again, but I was coming home from a yoga class when I was a young adult, and I was playing meditation music. Not a good idea when you're driving, right? I drove right off the road and spun on a little wet spot and crashed. And fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody else, but boy, did it teach me. I was into a different state of mind, and I can't be physically focused if I'm wanting a spiritual experience. So I have to be careful that when I'm doing something physical, I'm fully embodied. Now I bring my spiritual awareness into my physicality, and that's really the point here, I think. That's what to practice. That's what to get good at. But when I'm embodied, I need to have the full capacity of my human physicality in order to function in my human environment. Does this make sense? Yes. And so how do we work with our spiritual awareness, and how does that help us to be able to navigate our physicality, not only safely, but with inspired action? How can I, bring spiritual focus in without falling on the ground, without falling flat, because I'm so distracted by my spiritual self. So I think about this. I mean, how do we embody spirituality? One thing I'm going to talk about here for a few minutes is divine life. Divine life is one of our spiritual capacities. And if we take any of them, any of our Unity's 12 powers, any way we could describe the divine, the spiritual realm, we could take any of those and then engage in some kind of practice that has us being able to acknowledge our spirituality in the middle of physical expression so that we can become masterful at that, right? So divine life, one of the aspects of divine life is flow, or the animation, right? The animating power of divine life. Life is forward, onward, upward motion. And, we can say, and we do, we affirm, I'm in the flow, right? I'm in the flow of divine life. We can experience life as a flow. And so a good practice for being able to do that is to incorporate flow into my physical movement, right? Into dance, into rhythm, into a walking meditation flow, hiking with an in the moment awareness, right? Affirming in the middle of physical activity that I am the forward, onward, upward flow of life. Being able to say life is what is informing my walk this morning, life. So just say to yourself this affirmation and allow it to ring true for you in your physicality right now to bring in the spiritual quality of life. I am the forward, onward, and upward flow of life. Well, life is also vitality, the energy of life, right? We learned in fourth grade science class, did you, that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can be converted to other forms, but that energy is life, the capacity to bring ideas to life from the formless state of our imagination into form, being able to create in physical form from the spiritual creativity, imagination, that bringing all the energy or vitality to bringing something to life, right? So for this, we can practice the creative process, which in unity is that mind idea expression, right? Knowing I am one, divine mind and I are one mind. And so I draw from that one mind a unique divine idea that makes sense to me and that gives me a thrill. And I shape that in my power of imagination, another spiritual capacity of mine. And I start seeing, how does this take shape? How does this take shape? And then as I do that, I bring it into manifestation in physical form when I take that step of committing that idea to paper, creating a plan for action, right? Funding a new venture, whatever it is I'm going to do to bring that to life. So an affirmation that I can use when I am deliberately creating out of divine mind is, I give life to divine ideas. Say that to yourself. I give life to divine ideas. And a third aspect of life as I think about this for understanding my physical and spiritual oneness, wholeness, is the idea of presence. For so long, the word presence only meant the presence of God, right? It meant a divine presence. But one thing I experienced when I was working with the power of divine life, when I was writing Divine Audacity, was I had an experience of my deceased sister Maureen. I had woke up in the middle of the night and I was downstairs, and all of a sudden I had this snarky, humorous thought, this sort of a caustic, humorous thought that was nothing like the way I think. It was funny, but but definitely my sister Maureen's kind of funny. It wasn't something I would have thought of. And in the middle of the night, sitting there, I'm like, now I know why I'm awake. Hello, Maureen. It's like I felt her. I knew it was her, right? It was evidence of her. I didn't need to see her, hear her voice. I knew her presence. She had a distinct presence. And this evidence of life is something that stays with me. So presence is evidence of life. It's not merely physical, because I experienced my sister totally disembodied, but I experienced her presence. So I think we each have an unrepeatable presence. We each have an individuality. And so just think about being a kind of presence that you choose to be. And think about what your presence means when you're out in public. I had a friend that did this exercise of going to a mall, and he walked around with his head planted down toward the floor, didn't talk to anybody, and nobody talked to him. Then he went through again, the same place. He went through again, but this time he made eye contact with people and he said hello and he spoke to them, and he got responses from the same people that, that weren't just a few minutes before. So he decided, what is my presence going to mean? I'm going to connect and relate. And so tell yourself, I am a dynamic presence shining the light of life. I am a dynamic presence shining the light of life. So these are just a few thoughts, friends, for just what I think, and I think about how can I become more conscious, when I'm in physical form, that my spiritual understanding, my nature that is spiritual, informs my physicality. How can I know that I can be fully grounded in my humanity and inspired spiritually, and bringing that inspiration into the next movement, into the next conversation, into the next thought? This is what I think we're working with, to see ourselves not separately. I'm either human or I am divine, but to get really good at doing this crazy eights, or this infinity of, sometimes I'm just fully focused physically, and other times I'm focused spiritually, and I know myself as a spiritual being. And where life gets sweet, and where the practice is in how to have these two aspects of being function together, because there's no separation in that infinity circle, is there? There's no separation. I'm not all of this or all of that. I am a spiritual human. I am a spiritual human. And how can I get good at practicing that? So for that, let's take a moment for some meditation, friends, as we invite ourselves to an awareness of our wholeness. So in your own way, just close your eyes, settle in, allow yourself to have a posture that permits your relaxation physically, but allows you to remain alert. And as we open in this meditation time, begin with an awareness of your human experience and all that comes with it, blessing your human experience, your emotions, sensations, thoughts, and impressions. Bless the fullness of your humanity. Bless your body, your brain, your heart, your organ systems. Bless your body's innate intelligence and vitality, faithfully and tirelessly in service to all that you are. You're invited to say to yourself, I open my mind to all that I am, that of me that is sensed but not seen, the spiritual I am. I open that I may know my whole self. In that state of opening, I quickly am able to recognize the wholeness that is, the original and absolute I am, the field of infinite intelligence, knowing there's only presence, there's no absence. There is only presence, no absence. I devote a few moments to integrating my human and spiritual awareness. Say, I am wholeness itself. Nothing could ever be missing, wrong, or broken about me. I'm 100% human, 100% spiritual. I'm indivisible. I cannot be separated out from wholeness. I'm not pieces and parts. I'm an integrated wholeness, fully physical, fully spiritual. And so, in a moment of silence, I'm going to invite us to recognize how the whole me moves through processes of evolving, of healing, of transformation, and the whole me reaches fresh conclusions. To know that I am whole in the midst of my human conditions, and I foster well-being as I nurture my divine humanity. Let's sit in the glorious awareness. I am fully human, fully spiritual right now. Drawing a deep breath and breathing out, and doing this a couple more times, just invigorating the human physical form. And breathing in an awareness of I am human. I am spiritual. I am a spiritual human. I am whole. I am one. And so it is. So it is. Amen.